The Trade Minister, Steve Ciobo, has hit back at critics in the ongoing scandal over parliamentary travel expenses. Dozens of politicians have found themselves in the firing line after charging taxpayers for trips to sporting events, including the AFL Grand Final and the Polo. Our political reporter, Stephen Jedgetts, has more.
Steve Ciobo says that this is all part of the job of being a minister. Now, of course, Mr Ciobo is one of those ministers who's come under fire for his travel habits. He went to the grand final in 2013 of the AFL at the expense of a company and charged taxpayers for some of his travel bills. Now, that's exactly the sort of behaviour that's almost certainly broadly within the rules as they stand because they're grey, but which may be said to fail the so-called pub test. Nonetheless, Steve Ciobo thinks that he's been treated a little bit unfairly, or rather perhaps it's fairer to say that politicians in general have been treated unfairly. He says that when politicians get invited to events like sporting events by businesses, then they go because they're going to have important discussions with those businesses, and that, he says, is all part of the job. Therefore, it's reasonable to charge work expenses for a work trip. Let's have a listen to what Steve Ciobo had to say this morning on the ABC's AM program.
The notion and suggestion that because ministers or parliamentary secretaries or others are invited to go along to these events, specifically by businesses and organisations who are taking the opportunity to showcase themselves there, to take the time to have a conversation in relation to important matters, absolutely is work-related, and that's the reason why.
Now, that explanation may not wash with some of the independent MPs who have been pursuing this issue, including Andrew Wilkie, who's put his own bill forward for curbing some of the excesses in the travel administration system as it stands. Now, he points out that the government's report on this issue that was issued to them almost a year ago contains recommendations which the government has yet to fully act on. It's implemented a few of them and it's promising action on all of the rest, but very little movement as yet. And he argues that the fact that the government has been slow to move on this proves that there's been a lot of empty rhetoric behind a lot of their promises.
Stephen Jedgetts there.